Let's roll out.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the WartBurg Infusion Entertainment Review. I'm one of your hosts, MrWartburg. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Thank you for coming back.
It is episode 10. We're recording this on February 12th. The Friday WandaVision episode 6 has dropped, I think.
Yep.
We got a whole lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, the aforementioned WandaVision. Some casting news and some fun, cool projects we're both interested in. Some interesting Disney Plus news that kind of shocked me when I saw the numbers that were in the report. And then, of course, speaking of Disney, we got to talk about the news that they're also in for, which is canning Gina Carano, which is a whole thing.
When you cover entertainment news, you have to talk about the big stories, and this is a big story.
Yeah, it was so crazy how that dropped, and then the Pedro Pascal stuff dropped, the exact same time. That was a weird night. Yeah,
it was.
So let's get right to it. It's been 2 weeks since our last episode. So Fusion, what have you been up to?
Well, in terms of games, just playing Ark, really, and then sprinkling in when you and the other guys when we can play Apex. It's really it. Apex has been really fun. Just because I think there's a little group of us that we kind of have that little itch for a battle royal that we have to get into our system. And when we played a couple months ago, you told me it's I think I'm getting the itch for battle royal again. And we both had really a lot of fun playing Apex with the the updates to it, and updating the map is probably the biggest thing for me. But that and Ark. But in terms of watching, I went back and I watched season 3 of Stranger Things in the last 2 weeks. Such a good season, man. Such a good, it's based in the 80s. I'm a kid from the 80s, so they get everything as right as possible. I guess we can argue about the whole thing with the Demogorgon because the Dungeons and Dragons character didn't come out till 84, and the season 1 was based in 83. Continuity wise, there's been a few things that they get off, like music and all that stuff. But it was such a good show, and I'm dying for season 4, man. I need to know what's going on with Hopper and what's going on in Russia. Why the fuck there is a Demogorgon over there? I need to know. Yeah. It was such a good season. The Jinx, I don't know. You're not as big into true crime as I am.
I've heard of it, but never watched it.
Okay, it's the HBO documentary series, and Rooster Teeth talked about this on their podcast several times because it's just crazy. I'm really big into true crime. I listen to tons of podcasts, read books. Been doing this since I was in college. Before that, in my late teens, early 20s, I got into the West Memphis 3 because I watched an HBO documentary series called Paradise Lost, and if you've never watched it, you need to go watch about the West Memphis 3 because it takes place in the mid 90s. Talks about basically how in the middle of the Bible Belt, in Podunk, Arkansas, that these 3 guys get railroaded for murder of these 3 little boys because of the fact that they just wear rock and roll T-shirts and they have long hair. That's really it. It was a witch hunt. It was a modern day witch hunt. So that's what got me into true crime. But The Jinx is probably one of my favorite docu-series because not even that, a documentary miniseries, because of just the fact that how it ends. And if you've never seen it, I'm sorry guys, it's almost 10 years old now, so I'm gonna spoil it for you, but you gotta still go watch it. The guy basically at the end of the show admits what happened. To a degree. Basically, they find a piece of evidence. The docuseries, the director basically uncovers this letter that's written that was sent from the killer that killed another person that's tied to this man and to his life, and which it was a close friend of his. And then he realizes, okay, well, we found a letter from another person in his life that he misspells these words exactly the same way. The signature is exactly the same. And this one was from the killer that was sent to the cops about her body. This one was sent to so-and-so, a friend of his. Oh, God, this is the same guy. This is the proof we need. So basically, in the last episode, they sit him down and are like, okay, you see this letter? And he's like, yep, this is the letter. This was the noted side of it. To police, cadaver. Here's the address. He's like, well, that would come from the killer because blah, 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 blah. He's like, they misspelled Beverly Hills. They misspelled Beverly. And then the director just goes, okay, now, can you take a look at this? Yeah, this is a letter I sent to her, blah, 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 years ago, the same person that was killed. And then he goes, okay, well, look at the envelope. He just sits there and looks and goes, okay, what can you tell me? I was like, well, it's misspelled the same way. And he goes, so did you write the other letter? And he was like, well, look, I mean, if you look at the both of them, you would assume that I killed, it would be me. And that's really it. They're like, okay, thank you. They wrap up and they're like, let's get the fuck out of this room because we're sitting next to a killer, like confirmed killer now. And by the way, this whole story, it's got ties to where I'm from, Houston, because right outside, about an hour out, is Galveston, which is the Gulf Coast. And that's what started this whole docuseries was in early 2000s. He kills one of his neighbors because he's out hiding in Galveston from New York. And he's hiding because in the 80s, his wife went missing. And he was like the number one suspect for her disappearance for like 20 years. And then he decides to go to Galveston to hide out and then ends up killing his neighbor. But then he gets off because it's self-defense. You just gotta watch this series. Like, am I spoiling it? I don't fucking care. I mean, go look at the case. It's out there publicly. But I mean, just to see how his life runs from step by step, just to see leading to this moment. And then at the very end, he goes to take a piss and the directors leave the room. They let him go to the bathroom. He has his mic on him and it's still hot. And he basically just says, that's it. Yeah. Gave them the information. That's it.
Oh, jeez.
He's like, killed them, killed them. Sure did. Like, he doesn't flat out say, yep, I just told everybody I killed so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. But like just the way he's talking, it's like he's talking to himself. But and that's how the series ends. That's how the series ends.
What a great ending moment.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max, guys. Because I love true crime, and HBO does such a great job with true crime documentaries. The murder of Heyman Lee and, the case surrounding that with her ex-boyfriend, Adnan Syed. Great series because it talks about a lot about, whether he did it or not. But the Jinx is still one of my favorites just because of the ending alone. The ending alone is fucking crazy. And then the other thing I watched, I needed some palate cleansing, just ultra violent combat movies with no real thought in. I watched the Underworld series. Went back.
Oh wow, that takes me back.
Yeah, man, like early 2000s.
I will say those first two are still fun times.
Yeah, and let's be real, Kate Beckinsale. The outfit for the movies. Come on, man. Like, I became a Kate Beckinsale fan in 2003 when Underworld came out.
I'm pretty sure everyone was.
I was like, I don't know who she is, but I think I'm in love with this girl. But anyway, it's just a really bad series in terms of just storytelling. It's just bad.
Oh yeah, it's
cheesy. And the violence is just top notch, man.
Yeah. And
you just get to see vampires or werewolves just fucking kill each other nonstop. Just gore, like just supernatural gore. Just every other scene, there has to be something just ultra violent. And I went back and watched that, and like I said, it doesn't really hold up. Does not hold up very well. Nope. But it's still good. It's just good. Like, it's kind of like watching Con Air every few years.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
that's a good way to put it.
You just still want to just watch it. But that's really all I've been doing, man.
All right. So for me, Resident Alien is a new series on Sci-Fi.
Yeah, I watched the first episode. Haven't gone back and watched
They're on 3. I've only watched the first 2.
Okay.
Alan Tudyk is amazing. The guy's incredible. I finished The Expanse season 5.
Yep.
Finale was a little anticlimactic, but it was still very fun. And they really set up the stage for their final season very, very well. Obviously, WandaVision. And I'm up to the end game of Deep Space Nine. So I got 7 episodes to go. And then I'm done. I've watched every single episode of up to Discovery and Picard, every single Star Trek series.
So what are your thoughts on Deep Space Nine? The reason why I asked is because I was listening to a podcast the other day called Hysteria 51. They're fucking hilarious. But the way one of the hosts described Deep Space Nine is, I don't want to watch truck stop TV show in space. I would say that's gross oversimplification, because once the Next Generation writers come over, which is season 3, that's when TNG stops. Sure.
DS9 starts, and then Voyager starts like season 4-ish of Deep Space Nine. So there's that period of time where all the best writers were on Deep Space Nine for a season, and then all these threads get started in that season, and they carry through for the next 4 years. And season 3 on Deep Space Nine is the best Star Trek show ever, of all of them. Season 3 on Deep Space Nine is the best.
Okay.
Because they take these stupid bullshit one-note characters from the first couple seasons, and by the end you're like, fuck, that's a great character. Like, all of them. Even the bad guys. They do a great job. And they had some of the best guest stars of all of them. Yeah, especially when the Klingons like become like a major. Again, that's a season 3 on part of the story. It's awesome. Worf shows up in season 4. Yeah, it's great. I'm curious to see how it ends. I only remember watching the finale as a kid. Some of the other bits I'd caught on rewatches and stuff, but I'd never watched it all the way through in continuous form like I did with Voyager. My dad was more into Voyager, so I never watched Deep Space Nine as a kid. But I've been like through basically from college on, I kind of started rewatching all of them. Just off and on. And now I'm like, Deep Space Nine was the last one of the prime timeline, pre-reboot stuff that I hadn't watched before. And I'm really enjoying it. But I also need to rewatch Undiscovered Country because Christopher Plummer was fucking amazing in that movie.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I really need to rewatch that one.
Did you enjoy Front Enterprise? Star Trek
I actually, again, once the new their last showrunner they had, I think it was Manny Koto, took over in season 4. They started doing these like 3-episode pods.
Sure.
Where it'd be story structure and then some light connected tissue to the next story structure. Awesome. Like some of the coolest fucking Trek. Like there's a whole...
Basically, it was written like a comic book, essentially.
More or less, yeah.
Most comics have like a 3 to 5 issue arc, you know?
Yeah, and then you move on.
And they move on to another arc.
Yeah. And it was a lot like that. And it was leading up to the Romulan War and the actual founding of the Federation, which we didn't get to see. And you could tell, they left all the pieces right there. Like, it was right there. And then UPN being an absolutely dog shit network, it never happened. God, UPN was such a joke. Like, that whole structure, it makes the CW look like CBS. Like, that was UPN. Like, it was tiny and terrible.
I bet Paramount right now is kicking themselves because they're like, we could have finished off yet another show we could have thrown in our catalog, because apparently they're going to throw everything in there, including like MTV shit. Like, they need to be putting in all of the old Real World, Road Rule stuff, Liquid TV, all the Beavis and Butthead catalogs, Daria, all of that stuff. Apparently they're going to work a lot of it in there eventually. But yeah, man, I'm sure they're probably thinking we should have finished Enterprise the right way, because we could have had another show. We could have another Star Trek show. We could have had people binge on, you know.
If they ever wanted to get back into that old, like much like they are doing with Discovery, but like do an older show, the Romulan War and the actual founding of the Federation, like how that all came to be, it'd be fucking great to see. Like, it'd be awesome to see. Which would suck because then we don't get Jeffrey Combs to come in and do his Admiral Shran. You remember Shran from Enterprise? Yeah, and he was awesome in a bunch of Deep Space Nine guest appearances too. God, he's a great character actor. And we wouldn't get to see his Shran. I'd be a little mad. Or we get old Shran as a captain. I'd be all in on that.
So they're in Enterprise we cover the Romulan War, but in Abrams' movie verse, it hasn't happened yet. It's
in Abrams' universe. Well, because in Abrams' universe, the prime timeline is still happened.
Okay,
it's an alternate reality. So
but it happens. Okay, I get.
Yeah, and then
right when Kirk is born is when the alternate.
That's when it happened. That's when the timeline splits. So the Romulan War happened.
Okay.
Which is why like nobody speaks Romulan, because they never really figured it out, and the Romulans just retreated into space. Sure, much like they did in the actual Romulan War that we are told what happens in books and various pieces of media associated with the canon property. But we never actually get to see the Romulan War, which really fucking sucked. Because Enterprise set it up great. They really nailed it, and nope, never got to see it. Plus, the NX-01 ship design was dope. Fucking loved that ship design.
Yeah.
It really felt like, that was a ship that would fly in and just absolutely wreck shit once they upgraded it. It was awesome. But I think that's about it. Oh, speaking of, you brought up Con Air. Speaking of Nick Cage stuff, something I'm going to watch tonight, maybe tomorrow, is Willy's Wonderland dropped on Vudu. Okay. That Five Nights at Freddy's knockoff with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
It dropped. So I'm gonna watch that. Apparently, it's pretty good.
Okay. All right.
So I'm gonna watch that just for something to talk about next time.
Sure.
So speaking of stuff to talk about, let's jump into some news. We got a few small stories before we get into our two big topics. First, mostly some casting news. One of the big ones that came out. Actually, we'll start with the small one, and then work into the tangentially related stuff later. First being that Jack Black is going to be in the Borderlands movie, which is like the best casting he could get because he's going to be Claptrap.
Yeah.
Which totally works.
Let him be the new donkey for like Eddie Murphy's donkey.
Yeah.
He goes in, records for an hour, and he makes $6 to $10 million.
Exactly. And Claptrap in the games is annoying as fuck. Jack Black, he's going to be hilarious as fuck. Yeah. So that's an upgrade from what the games gave you. Getting Jack Black to voice that character, totally an upgrade.
Now, what I'm hoping for is we get something close to the video game in terms of like just the architecture of Claptrap.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to see an android that has a Jack Black face on it because they feel like they have to engage you with Jack Black's like facial features, facial expressions. Let's not do that, guys. Let's just have Claptrap, and it can be a wonky, goofy machine that's Jack Black voices. I don't need to see a Jack Black robot moving around like you with the face and all that stuff. I don't really want to see, a fat robot trying to do the wiggle and do whatever, he's going to do, whatever Jack Black does. I think it's a good casting, man.
Yeah. The other castings I'm seeing from this make me go, okay, but like, have you ever played the game?
Yeah.
Like, seems, and don't get me wrong, maybe they have a vision and they could see something, but I mean, Eli Roth, what is the last good thing he did? What movies has he done? Let me look him up.
Hostel 2? I don't.
Eli Roth, IMDb.
We're going to do this while we record. We're going to look
Fuck yeah,
time.
Do it live.
Let's do this.
Eli, no. Oh, I forgot he was a character in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, he was the bear Jew.
Yeah, was he the bear Jew?
Yeah, he was the bear Jew. That was Eli Roth.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that was him. Yeah.
Okay.
Donnie Dokowitz. What was it? I don't even remember his name. Not Donnie Darko. It was Donnie something. I forget his name. But yeah, he was the Jew bear with the baseball bat. Still one of the craziest and visceral scenes in a Tarantino movie, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did Death Wish with Bruce Willis, which was
that was
a movie.
That was what?
That was a movie.
Yeah, that exactly. Just like Wonder Woman 84, it was a movie. I agree.
Yeah. So
Kate Blanchett,
like some of the people attached to the cast make me go, okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
But I'm not expecting greatness.
Lionsgate, is this going to be Paramount Network? Like, this isn't a theater. This can't be a theater.
But if you're getting Kate Blanchett and all these other people to come in, and I guess from what I saw, I should know her name.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis to be one of the Doctor characters, like with Jack Black and all these other people you're getting, and Kevin Hart. And I was like, that can't be streaming. It's got to be theatrical. So
yeah, that's true.
I'm just not sure what kind of budget they're going to get for what they could do with the story.
We say that now, but with streaming networks, they are basically Hollywood movie studios now because big names go do everything now. They do theatrical releases and they do streaming releases now. Like, I mean, The Rock's been in a movie like in one of these network movies recently. I mean, a lot of these guys do this now because I'm sure it's a feature film, so they work for a few months, but they get a pretty close to a normal like studio level paycheck. They can't get points obviously because there's no box office share. But yeah, I mean, and then Netflix has a huge budget where they probably pay they pay, just as an example, they pay Dave Chappelle like what $50 million to do 4 stand-up shows. And
now they just paid him again to have the Chappelle show back.
Which I mean, he was always pissed that he never got paid for that. Well, all right, he got paid for it, so now they're going to air it. Okay, well, they'll get traffic back. It's all about building your brand, man. But back to the Borderlands. I mean, what if it's an Amazon thing? Like The Boys, but it's a film.
I could see that, like that kind of tone, and because kind of more visceral nature of it.
Bill and Ted's Face the Music was put on.
Yeah, that went direct too.
Direct video. I don't know, man. I'm a little worried. I do know. I need to know, and I'm gonna throw this out there. If you were directing this, who would you make a run for Handsome Jack?
I mean, shit.
I'm gonna say one name, and you're probably gonna be like, "It's the right choice because it just looks right," but it's also over.
Who you got?
Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
To be the arrogant asshole, quasi dark guy that has a heroic past, but turned and he's just a rich a-hole.
Yeah.
He could play, but then again, are we just getting Deadpool? Are we getting Wade Wilson? You know, that's
I could see, just based on how he played Mysterio, I could see Gyllenhaal.
You know, he actually was funnier than I thought he was going to be.
Like he had a really good like sense of like that sarcastic humor with that hard edge of like, oh, he's actually psychotic. Like when he would turn and be like, you know, like on his crew, that kind of thing. I could see it, but like I was never a huge Borderlands fan. I'm just really leery of this one because you know with these people it's going to get a budget, and when it bombs, that means we're like that whole video game industry is going to hit another low. Video game adaptation industry is going to hit another low. But we may have Uncharted coming in to be like, hold my beer, we got this.
Oh man, wouldn't it be great if it was Uncharted and then it leads to, you know, the next story, Last of Us, like just you know this Borderlands is like pure shit, but then Uncharted's good.
Yeah, like Uncharted's just good, and then we get to Last of Us.
Remember, we also thought Tomb Raider, because it was styled after the rebooted Tomb Raider,
but only halfway. Like they needed to dive all the way the fuck in, and they didn't. Which is like, why not? The first those Lara Croft games went full indie on like no, Supernatural's real and it's fucking scary as hell.
Yeah.
The movie didn't, and it was stylized after the game that did. Like, why the fuck not?
Yeah, it was like Indiana Jones, but not quite Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
and
like it was like a half-baked indie, which is like, no, those games were trying to emulate the kind of story structure of those indies with a modern setting, and it worked. And the movie couldn't quite nail it, even though the casting was great.
Yeah, I mean, she looked the part of
and you got Walton Goggins to come in to be the bad guy. Like, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
but
I'm worried that this is going to end up being a lot like that Tomb Raider,
where it's close, but you're like, this was a waste of time.
Yeah, like, you know, they had the right intentions, they just didn't have the right execution. That's going to be probably what's going to happen with this one.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have the star-studded cast, and you know, Jack Black's going to be the standout, and what's going to happen is but then they're going to do like a spin-off on some fucking network where it's, you know, Claptrap, because they have to do Jack Black because everybody likes the wacky guy, you know, and it's okay, guys, but the movie was shit, you know. That's what I think is going to happen, but you know, maybe we'll be surprised. I don't know.
Hopefully. Well, speaking of, since we brought it up, The Last of Us news, we finally know who's going to be the star as Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us, the HBO series that's coming out, and it's two people who have been on HBO a lot. We got Pedro Pascal as Joel, which I didn't see coming because I heard earlier that day that they were looking at Mahershala Ali, which would have been amazing. But then pivoting to Pedro Pascal's pretty solid choice, you know? Definitely not a bad second option, if indeed that was how it worked out. And then, of course, Ellie, the like daughter surrogate for his character Joel, is going to be played by Bella Ramsey, who has also been in Game of Thrones and also his Dark Materials. So this will be her third straight like HBO series that she's been in, which is a lot. And of course, she was awesome as Lyanna Mormont in Game of Thrones.
Of course.
Yeah. Some might say the best character of the last 2 seasons. Up until she died, which
is this
was stupid.
Going to be an ongoing series?
I don't know. Like, I have to imagine they're trying to be like, you know what? Watchmen worked great. Let's just do that, but with a video game.
Okay.
Because if they do, that's awesome. And it frees up your actors to go do other things. You know?
So an anthology, basically.
Yeah, like, and doing it as a miniseries leaves you the option of a few years down the road doing part 2.
Sure.
You know?
And HBO is not shy of postponing their productions of a specific IP for
like they did Band of Brothers, and then they did The Pacific like 12 years later, right? Like those are, and they're not tied, but they're kind of part of the same. You think of them together, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, they would Sopranos and The Wire, 2 of the greatest shows ever. They would just postpone them for a year at a time, if not more. You know, they would just like, fuck it, we'll just take a few years off. You know.
Yeah, and it would, like it gives them time to just circle back if they want to, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I get the feeling that The Mandalorian is not destined to be like a 7-season type of show. It's going to be like 4 or 5, maybe.
I could see it capping at 5.
capping at 5. The story's done with the Mandalorian, and we move on. So, but then he's a busy man because what else did he get cast in recently? There was another movie we had talked about.
Yeah, I can't. I'm blanking on his casting news stuff.
Oh man, but yeah,
is he in the article?
He's riding the wave right now, man. But I think it's a good casting because I love Pedro Pascal. I thought he was fucking great in Narcos. Great in Game of Thrones, of course. As Oberyn Martell.
What a great character! Holy shit, that character fucking ruled.
Yeah, there's just so many things when you look back on that. The way they adapted a character from the book into the series was, based off of the casting of that person, and they had to basically just let it roll. Like you had to let it roll with Pascal as Martell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I like the casting for both. I think Bella Ramsey is also great as Ellie. I think so as well. I know I saw a few people kind of making jokes about her online when they announced it. That's just typical social media. People just have to find the snark out of it. They're both great actors. Let's be real. She's very young in her career and just young period, but I thought she was amazing. She stood out in Game of Thrones. I mean, she became a meme and everyone loved her. When she died in the big battle, everyone was so fucking sad, but she went out like a badass,
Hell yeah.
So, it was just, there were just so many things about her playing, the character in Game of Thrones. I think this is, HBO does a good job, man. That's why I think I told you, even before we started doing this show, I was always hoping that Why the Last Man would be an IP that HBO would pick up, even though it's DC Vertigo, and eventually it was on FX. But I was always hoping it would be on HBO because I thought HBO could really do a universe of Why the Last Man properly. And they put in effort into the budgeting, and they give the creative as much free reign as possible. And the showrunners really do their best to try to stay in, because like you said, Watchmen. I mean, we all thought, okay, what are we going to do next with this series? And the way it ended, it went through the entire season. You're like, okay, I like this. This is because a lot of people didn't like the first episode. They were just like, I don't think I'm going to like this. But then all of a sudden, you watched episode 2 and 3. People were like, okay, this is actually really fucking good. So, yeah, I have the utmost confidence that The Last of Us will be good on HBO.
Mm-hmm. Same here. I think that might be the one that nail it, and might be the one that finally gets networks to realize
the first game one.
No, it might be the first one that makes them go, you know what? Miniseries, not movies, because like the structure of a game outside of indie titles is just so broad.
Yeah,
how the fuck do you fit that into a movie?
Well, like Resident Evil, it's just a horrible movie because you're in an hour and a half, you're having to squeeze in so much.
I will say, Resident Evil could work as a movie because it's a horror title. If they actually lean into that,
Silent Hill could work as if it was done better. It could be a great series of horror movies. I think Resident Evil, because you can jump in and out different areas of the entire world, simultaneously.
I should say certain games in Resident Evil can work as a movie.
That's true. That's true.
Like the one that they said about they're making the movie again. They're like, we wanted to film it more as like a killer chasing a person horror movie. Sure. Yeah. So it's going to have like those camera angles and stuff. Like, no, she's being chased and it's all tension the whole way through, where she's not trying to unravel some conspiracy and stop some bomb, and she's just trying to not die. Sure. So it could work. But that's a pretty narrow video game that could work as a movie, as a 2-hour theatrical release movie. Miniseries, that a lot more options. Like Netflix, Lost in Space, do Mass Effect. Just saying.
Oh, Mass Effect definitely has to be a miniseries. Come on, guys! Like
that, they could do. No way. Well, I don't know, miniseries. Do 3 seasons, so you do each arc.
Yeah. And
you're done. And then actually do the ending. Like, just be like, fuck it. Our adaptation is going to do the indoctrination theory, and the winning is by not Shepard choosing to not be indoctrinated, so the Reaper shut off. Done. Like that would have been the perfect ending, but whatever.
Yeah, but I agree. That's a game that definitely has to be a miniseries, not a movie. It wouldn't work because you would squeeze so much in a short time, and you're just like, there's just way too much happening here for me to just soak it in.
One last
if they do it like in a Star Trek kind of a setting, like the way they do, like style. Yeah,
be awesome. Speaking of streaming stuff, Disney Plus, it's 904.9 million subscribers.
Yowza.
Which was like their 100 million was like their 4-year goal. They did it in 14.
90 million was their 4-year goal.
Yeah, they did it in 14 months.
Yeah.
And this is pre-WandaVision.
Yep.
So this is basically end of December numbers, and they had just opened in one international market, but they're opening in more soon. So their new goal is to reach 260 million by 2024, which is insane. Like that's almost the entire population of America.
85%, yeah, US population.
And so they're looking at, like, right now they make how many billion a month? It was like 3.5 billion a month right now, and that's before they have a bunch of price kick-ups. Number one, the first price increase going from $6.99 to $7.99 for everybody. And they're getting a lot of those promotional people off of the 1 year into, hey, are you going to pay for it monthly? Which usually they'll probably see a slight dip in subscribers, but a massive uptick in revenue.
Yeah.
So that is a significant amount of revenue per year for a company, regardless of how theaters do in the coming years. That's a lot of money.
Yep. What that leads me to believe, Warburg, is that we can expect at least 1 to 2 of their blockbuster movies to be a Disney Plus exclusive.
Yeah.
Going forward.
I could definitely see their animated stuff just going straight to Disney Plus.
Why not? Because every time you do it, the kids are going to want their parents to sub,
Exactly. Like that's going to... MCU might not get the whole family.
No.
Pixar would.
Yeah. Pixar would. Yeah. I mean, because they believe that Q4 was so successful in growth was because of Pixar's Soul. And then, of course, Mandalorian Season 2, that increased because the hype that social media brought to Mandalorian Season 2 was like, this show's fucking great. So many callbacks, and everybody had to jump into it. Like, okay, let me jump in, binge the first season and catch up. This is crazy, man. We're talking about an app that, what is Netflix? What did we talk about?
Netflix is right around 200 million.
200 million.
And they've been kind of, basically they've plateaued, more or less.
Yeah. Well, and because they've lost so many of the network IPs, they're having to scrape up IPs and do original movies and stuff at this point. But that's still respectful for Netflix to hang out around that. But the difference is, I think we've talked about this as well. Netflix still operates in the red so much of the time
because they have to pay licensing.
They licensing for one, but then they also have huge budgets on their productions, and then they end up cutting them a couple seasons in, like Glow. They didn't get to finish the final season of Glow and a couple other shows because even though apparently Glow was hugely popular, they did a great job with down views, but then they still were like, it's not worth the cost, so we're just going to cut it, and they don't let them finish it. But to have 200 million, that's still great for Netflix. But then when Disney hits 150, I expect Netflix to start making a run at a lot of other IPs as well. Like, especially when it comes to like any video game and comic book style IPs, like The Goon, maybe stuff from Top Cow and Image, maybe that they finally say, fuck it, we're going to force Todd McFarlane to finally do a Spawn movie, and we're going to do it on Netflix. I can see them kind of like, okay, if they're increasing in subs, potentially we're going to be losing in subs at some point. There's going to be a law of diminishing return with subscriptions, and especially because there's only 300 and some odd million in the US, but then of course a large chunk is India and China is what they're attributing the bump into for Disney. Man, it's going to be interesting in the next 12 months when it comes to all these, because Paramount's going to be jumping in here. They're advertising all over the place right now. It's going to be very interesting what happens, and then what's going to happen with HBO. Are they going to retool things? We know how we've talked about this. There's a whole episode you can go back on, guys, and we talked about the announcement that they were going to put all the 2021 movies on the app. First runs on the app. Man, we are literally in the streaming wars right now. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah, like we're mid game of the streaming wars. And I think the next gold rush, my stake in this is on video games, on properties for serial adaptation, not movies, for adaptation into serial production.
So maybe Amazon goes after a Mass Effect,
or I could see and they have the Expanse assets and stuff too, so it could work. Or I could see Netflix doubling down on the fantasy and be like, fuck it, we'll do we'll try to do a dope Zelda adaptation.
Okay.
Because they're doing their fantasy, they have a lot more fantasy type content than Amazon and Disney do.
Okay.
That's that side of nerdydom is something they're into. Sure. It seems to be on the other side. So it'd be curious to see what they do on that front. But yeah, that's some interesting news. We got a couple topics to get to.
Yep.
We'll try to devote more to WandaVision, but I do want to get some brief thoughts on the Gina Carano's. Gina Carano, right?
Sure.
It's
Carano.
been a long week.
Yeah, Gina Carano.
She was fired by Disney for some really stupid social media posts, in my opinion. Basically equating, being a Jew to being a conservative in America, which is just a stupid fucking analogy.
But not being a Jew in the Holocaust, being Jewish.
During being a Jew during the Holocaust versus compared to being a conservative in America, trying to equate those two. It's like, no, it's not a thing. No. Just stop saying it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Like, if you have to equate that, it means you're an asshole and a stupid one.
There's some things that you like, no matter what your political, philosophical, whatever your views are, there are a few things in history that you really shouldn't try to compare your struggles to. One of them is, the Jewish people during the Holocaust. That's one thing you don't, because millions of people were murdered by, the Nazis during the Holocaust. And so when you talk about being a Republican during this time is just like, no, man, you're not being thrown in ovens. You're not having your teeth pulled out. You're not having, you're not being branded by what they perceive themselves to be as a higher species, higher race / species than you. Like, just all these things. Like, this is an area you're never going to win that argument, guys. When you try to compare what your struggles are to that, there are a few of them like that, and this is one of the bigger ones. It was a losing effort. And what really got me mad about this was I think when she got fired, things started leaking out that they wanted to terminate her in December, but then, they were also going to make the announcement of her own show, all that stuff. What I think happened was during the whole COVID thing, kind of at the back end of 2020, that's when she started tweeting out and making comments about masks and how stupid they are.
Yeah.
And, jumping on the whole conspiracy theory train. And, Twitter, social media is going to social media. Some people agree with her. Some people give her shit about it. Where she really fucked up was she doubled and tripled down, basically. And it was very snarky to people about that. And, when people were talking about, look, regardless of what your political views are, Gina, I have family, and I've had family that have died from COVID. And a lot of this is because they're frontline workers that have to be exposed to infected people to make their living. And they did the best that they could, including wearing masks. But we do this because we try to keep people safe and not infect each other, not worry about ourselves, but not infect each other. And, she was just kind of an ass about that to people, and that rubbed people the wrong way. And I think I told you this off the side. I really thought that she was going to end up getting fired at that time, but then it got really quiet.
Because that was right around the same time as all the anti-trans stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's not I don't know if it was planned, but it's certainly an interesting coincidence that she gets fired, and then the same day, Pedro Pascal's sister comes out as trans, and he's like, it's awesome. She's awesome.
Yeah.
The exact same day she gets fired. Rather interesting coincidence.
Well, it is $1 billion.
And sometimes life just works that way.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, I'm sure Disney probably knew. I'm sure Pedro probably told his PR people or his agents that, hey, I'm going to make an announcement about my sister, and I'm sure it made its way to Disney, and they're like, okay, well, why don't we just make this all a good strategy, just kind of paint us in a good light, we're going to fire her, we're going to take a big hit by based off of the numbers in the last election, half the people in this country are going to be pissed off about it,
But then really not do anything with their dollars because it's going to be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, they're all talk, whatever, dude. So yeah, I the news about Pedro's sister, great. The way he was very receptive to people's celebration of it, great. It could be Disney's strategy. Well, that's why you pay billions of dollars, millions a year. Each company pays out millions a year to PR people to do stuff like this. It makes sense. I'm not going to dog it, because if you own a business, then you have to throw out some really tough news. You're going to have to develop some PR strategy, along the way to make sure that that everything lands nicely. It doesn't hit too hard when it falls. But honestly, for Gina, I don't feel bad for her. Apparently, the rumor is that Disney pulled her aside last year, during the whole, the trans stuff, and around when she's talking shit earlier about the masks, they pulled her aside and told her to, cut the shit. And then she just doubled down after that. Yeah. She just thought what? Okay, I'm going to go do it anyway because, America, my right,
And especially because she got emboldened by their, oh, I got a show, I'm good.
Exactly.
And they're like, fuck it. Ain't happening.
It's like, oh, I've got a platform now, and I'm, alt-right, right, whatever her beliefs are, but just saying like, hey, I'm protected now. It's like, nah, bitch, you ain't protected. Like, just because we made the announcement doesn't mean we have to go through with it.
Yeah, and we didn't say it was you.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing:
the next Duke Nukem Forever for all we fucking care.
Take the money they were going to give her, give it to Timothy Oliphant, Rangers of the New Republic.
Oh God, he was so great.
Just saying, Timothy Oliphant, Western, Star Wars. Holy fuck!
We're coming up with great shows like Jimmy Woo and Darcy having their own X-Files theme show in the MCU.
Fuck yes.
They go around and exploring with. And if you want to have a platform for Monica Rambeau, have all three of them because all three have great chemistry.
Oh,
she's got.
We'll
talk about WandaVision in a sec.
I have some thoughts on her.
Sorry, but yeah, man, like I don't feel bad for Gina Carano. Like,
nope. And her next movie deal is, wait for it, Ben fucking Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, yeah.
That's so dumb. Oh man, that's really landing on your feet.
Yeah, right, guys. Look, man, I don't think that people in this country should be fired for their views. I don't think that. I think that people should have their own views. But here's the thing: when you have a certain level of public exposure and connection,
when that's part of your job,
like celebrities, like business people, high-profile people. PR is part of your job to a degree. Yeah, they pay people to handle their their PR, but they actually have to handle it as well because they're influencers too. Celebrities are also they're the first influencers. Before we had social media influencers, celebrities were and athletes and people of high public,
people with the profile.
They were influencers, man, and they're still influencers. So for her to really, I don't feel bad for her, but at the same time, I don't like to see that happen. But, man, she was told by her employer, look, it's not about what our political views are and your political views are. It's just a bad look right now, given what's going on. Calm it down. And she just couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. And they were like, you know what? Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to pull the rug from under you and you're going to have to start over again,
Yep.
And, wish her the best, but hopefully it's a learning experience for her because, if she was a left-leaning person, she wouldn't have lost her job. You don't know that because she could have said something very extreme on the left or outlandish.
Yeah, there are some extreme people on the left.
Yeah.
They're not as usually high profile, but they're there.
Yeah. But, don't feel bad for her. It sucks to see it happen, but I don't feel bad for her because she was given an opportunity to kind of just, calm it down, and she couldn't do it. She
just couldn't. And it's just consequences of your own actions.
Yeah, yeah. So when you saw the tweet coming down from, I think it was it Cineblend or I forget which one of her Variety that posted the initial one that she was fired. Oh, did you crack a smile?
I was like, makes sense. It just, the way she acts and the way Disney operates, they're not compatible.
Yeah.
That was always, her casting was always doomed to fail.
Yeah.
She's kind of like John Cena as an ex-athlete or The Rock as an ex-athlete in casting works because they don't suck as people and they're not idiots.
Yeah.
She's that ex-athlete that's an idiot who's also kind of an asshole.
Sure.
Sure. You can be an asshole and get away with it. A lot of people are. A lot of people in Hollywood are. Yeah. You can't also be a stupid asshole.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get fired.
Well, I had always thought that, she wasn't great in Deadpool and but I always thought that she was good in Haywire. But then I see a chain the other day where Ben Shapiro made that announcement. Yeah, I'm going to pick her. I'm going to put her in my own production because of, she was fired from Hollywood because of her political views, blah, 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 blah. And he talked about how she was a great actress, blah, 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 blah. And then one of these guys, these Hollywood insiders basically just responded with, yeah, you do know that someone had to come in and redub her audio for Haywire because she was such shit to work with. She wouldn't follow direction in terms of her dialogue at all. She wanted to do the action stuff, but when they tried to reposition her on camera for dialogue and get her to improve her delivery, she just was refusing to do that. So I forget her name now. She's been in a couple of productions. But yeah, she had to come in, this actress, had to come in and just redub her whole dialogue for Haywire. I'm like, okay, well, that kind of my only excuse back then was well, she was great in Haywire. Other than that, she's been kind of okay.
She can do stunts great, but that's
but a lot of people can do stunts great.
Exactly.
Brandon Fraser, basically ruined 10 years of his career because
he ruined his body doing it.
Yeah, just throwing himself around in the early 2000s with those mummy films, and You know, the Muppets or whatever, the Looney Tunes or whatever, all that's the movies he was doing in the early 2000s. He basically broke his body throwing himself around, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't feel bad for her. I wish her the best. Maybe it's a learning experience. I don't know, but
I doubt it will be.
Yeah,
just to be blunt.
I will tell you, Warburg, the one that worries me at this point now that, you know, because, you know, the internet has this whole quote unquote cancel culture. They have to go aggressively after people sometimes when it's just like, just, you know, if they're an asshole, leave them alone, or just, you know, like let the system work itself out. Quit trying to be, you know, a catalyst in the whole thing. The next one I'm worried about, and you're probably going to agree with me, is Chris Pratt. You know, he's a very right guy. Yeah. He has said some stuff that has been a little controversial in the past. I think if he's
never anything on the level of the stuff Carano said.
What was that?
Carano would be closer to J.K. Rowling versus Chris Pratt.
No, you're right. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Rowling is way too far right.
Yeah.
Versus Chris Pratt, who's just right leaning. I would say Pratt's closer to Schwarzenegger in terms of he's a centrist right. You know?
Yeah.
And we'll see.
You know, the great thing is that, you know, the one thing is that and we maybe at some point when we get closer to like Suicide Squad or maybe Guardians 3, we'll talk about the whole James Gunn thing. But you know, that's the first thing someone brought up to me about the whole James Gunn thing. I'm like, that's a little different because
that was the right trying to get someone, and then Disney wised up to be like, yeah, that was fucking stupid.
Yeah,
we
have to take these in a case by case basis.
Yeah,
like what Gina Carano said, her case was like. Yeah, she said
hers is a case of a straw breaking the camel's back. This was not a earth-shattering thing she said.
No.
It was a culmination of a lot of bullshit not being compatible with what the company's trying to do.
And then this was just the ultimate shithead statement to be like, okay, like this is enough. Like we get it.
Yeah, like you just one too many times. Yeah. Sometimes you got to pull the cord. You know, you got to cut it off.
You're going to compare yourself to
Jews in the Holocaust, like, come on.
Yeah, we've got to put her out of her misery.
Yeah, because and you've already had to have a talking to from your co-star about how to talk about trans people.
Yeah,
come on,
I agree.
That's enough. Like, I don't have. it was completely justified, and each time's got to be a case by case basis. But it's pretty big news, so I want to talk about it. Plus, I had a really fun idea for the title, so I wanted to do it.
All right, yeah, definitely go for it. Yep. I'm all down with that, man. All right.
Because the last time we did a Star Wars thumbnail was the best episode we had. So, shameless, but whatever.
Okay. And you got to do what you can, man, to get the clicks, right?
Hey, man, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And speaking of stuff we got to do, we got to talk about WandaVision.
Of course.
Let's end on a good note where we're going to just absolutely nerd the fuck out for like 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so episodes 5 and 6 are out now. We've both watched them. Episode 5, of course, being the holy goddamn shit they went there moment by recasting Evan Peters as Quicksilver in the MCU.
Yep.
And then episode 6 following up with Wanda being like, why the fuck do you look different? It's nuts. Hold on, I got a text. What the fuck? Oh, apparently my tacos are done. But I got a podcast to do, so tacos can fucking wait.
Yeah, tacos can wait.
I can't believe I'm saying that, but tacos can wait.
Hashtag tacos.
That would be title number 2. Tacos can wait.
There you go.
Yes, Carano is Cara Dunn, or tacos can wait. What do you think?
I like Cara Dunn, but you know,
I'm going to go with Cara Dunn for now.
And then you can also hashtag it in the media post with tacos.
Yeah, tacos can wait will be in the post for sure. So yeah, Fusion, what were your thoughts on WandaVision's 5 and 6?
5, great ending to the episode. Everyone was like, fuck, they went there. That was the social media response was, without spoiling, was, fuck, they went there. And I think we have both kind of predicted that was a possibility of happening just because there were rumors, leaking.
Yeah, and he was, I think, seen on set too.
Yeah, Peters was on set.
But which doesn't surprise because he's friends with them too. So like he could have just been visiting. That happens sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Or he could have been playing something else. Like he could have made it.
He's an actor. He's in a lot of stuff.
Which honestly, that still could be the possibility. But man, holy cow! 5 was great, and then 6 just. I think your prediction of Monica Rambeau. I think we're kind of going there, man, with her potentially.
She's going to be the mutants. Who is she in? What is she in the comics? She's got like a suit and powers and stuff. But yeah, she's got powers. So we're setting that up. That's happening.
Yeah.
So what else you got? What else jumped off at you at 5 and 6?
I'm still curious. I think a couple episodes ago, or even last episode we recorded, I mentioned that, hey, this may be his Vision's doing. That's probably the swerve. I'm obviously in episode 6. We can see now that the Vision character that we've been seeing is a product of this reality, because he tried to get out at the end of episode 6, and it tore him apart to leave. So he has the ability to try to leave, but I think he's a construct within that whole ball of energy, that whole hex energy. That's going to be very interesting. Your guy, whoever the secret guy is, you've mentioned it several times now, so I'll let you go ahead and jump in. Obviously, it's going to be the reveal next episode in episode 7. It's got to be,
right?
Well, because they said they were going to go meet their contact.
Like the contact. Right. I wonder if it's Barton.
But what does Barton bring?
No, she said she was getting tech from the guy, like how to get in. Who would be able to source tech and be interested in helping Wanda?
Okay. Barton, yep.
And he's got a series, Hawkeye. That's coming. So, synergy and makes sense story-wise. I could see Barton. I didn't see Barton until today being an option. I thought it would be Cumberbatch or Fury.
I'm gonna blow your mind here because they've squashed rumors about it, but it doesn't mean that the characters won't come back. What if it's Phil Coulson?
I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
LMD Phil, but it's MCU Phil now at this point. But it reintroduces Coulson into.
I would love MCU. It. I would lose my fucking shit if it was Coulson.
What if he's no longer working with SHIELD? What if he was? What if he is SHIELD, but he's like secretly been working with Monica? With Sword, quietly, because whatever. If you're going to tie it into Agents of SHIELD, obviously Feige said that if they do it, it's going to be a weird kind of reboot, soft reboot in a way, which kind of may take a little bit away from the show and some of it not. But what if it's Coulson? I think it's a big name, and I think it's Paul Bettany has said this is a person.
It's somebody he hasn't worked with, so it can't be Barton. But it could be Barton, but Barton and not be the big reveal. Like what if it's Barton? But it's not Martin.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still a lot here, man. I think that there's 2 big reveals. I think it could be this Avenger, or someone tied to the Avengers is going to be the guy Monica's meeting next episode. That's obviously going to happen next episode because they left to go meet with him, and we've been told him. She said him.
Oh shit.
She said him.
She needs a way to get in.
Yep.
What if it's? I could see them doing something with the quantum realm again.
Okay, so you're still going with Hank Pym here?
No, maybe not Pym, but like specifically using the tunnel via Lang, and then having an actual like incidental reunion with Wu, where Wu didn't know it was going to be Lang, because she doesn't know he's connected to Lang at all, right?
That's true.
So like I could see that being an option.
Okay.
There's a lot on the table here. It could be, which is so great about this show, is like all these doors are opening up, which none of us. I don't think people were like, okay, this could be the possibility. I don't think any of us thought it would get this fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, they've gone places in like just 6 22-minute episodes. So we're wondering, is Mephisto real? Is this a different, Quicksilver? Like the multiverse thing? What the fuck's going on with Agnes? Holy shit, we've gone some places, man. And I can't wait to see where they go.
So, your thoughts. You still believe it is Wanda that's controlling all of it?
Wanda's is powering this and has taken control. She didn't start it. My money is on. Okay, so number 1, how did she know where Vision was?
Sure.
So Hayward leaked it. Hayward is working the whole thing. Hayward, which is how he knew how to track Vision. Right, that was hinted at here. Hayward's dirty. Yeah. He's also an anagram for Hydra, so he could be Hydra, and we just didn't know.
Yeah.
Which could be how Coulson comes in and be like, hey, we knew he was Hydra. We couldn't catch him, so I was working behind the scenes to try to show it up. But anyway.
Sure.
So he's dirty, and I think he was working with Agnes, to control Wanda's power in the wake of the blip to stop it from ever happening again, because she almost beat Thanos, and Captain Marvel fucked off into space, but here's this WMD we have. Let's control her container and like control her power. And now that's completely off the rails, and Agnes is trying to escape because she knows she's lost control, but she can't leave.
Well, I think we've established that there is a lot of information out there from the blip and from the Avengers, because Darcy in episode 5 basically tells him so much stuff that we know about, like, Vision's death, fighting Thanos, like powers. They talk about the battle in Sokovia. Like they have a lot of information on stuff that we didn't know how much was outside of the Avengers themselves, like information about them. And it's just like, okay, well, they all know. And then, like you said, to hear him say, yeah, we're tracking Vision based off of the vibranium decay, I was like, oh shit, that's gonna play something bigger in the story later on. Like, there's a reason behind that.
Yeah. So yeah, my money is on Hayward being dirty, and he's gonna get taken down. Okay. But Harkness is gonna get away because they won't know they're working together. Like, Monica won't connect that dot. She's gonna get away and go report back to Mephisto. Okay. That's going to be my end game prediction.
So Agatha, we are going with Agatha.
Oh, she's got to be. She was trying to escape. Okay. Right? Like, she had that moment of clarity, tried to escape, but then Wanda's power said no. Because the actual, like, blue wall, that's not Wanda.
Nope.
Wanda's interacting with that and has taken control of it. But she didn't start this.
So someone else created the expansion in episode 6.
Yeah. I think it's either like AIM or some Hydra experiment or some, like, culmination of the two, AIM and Hydra's, like remnants, trying to control Wanda, and she flipped it on them and has now captured them all.
Okay, so, which makes sense because there's a lot of sword agents that are in the community.
Exactly.
We've established that very early on in episode, 3 or 4, that a lot of these are most of them are sword agents. But then here's the thing, is that when Quicksilver was sitting down with her in the town center, and this is what leads me to believe that Evan Peters may not be Pietro after all. He does look at her and goes, "How did you get all the kids in here?"
Yeah.
Like, if it is Mephisto, if he's channeling Mephisto to some degree, Mephisto's watching everything and felt like he had to jump in because Wanda was starting to lose her control, like her programming was starting to break down. So then he had to come in and get involved to help her find a friend.
I could see that.
And then that's why he stepped in. He wasn't in. Agatha Harkness was supposed to be there watching things, but then when she was failing at it, and then Wanda starts having a meltdown, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's Pietro at the end of that episode. Boom, he's right on time, right? Because earlier in the episode, we find out that she does mention to Monica, like, because of the previous episode was like, oh yeah, I had a brother, his name was Pietro, he died, and so I think it's interesting because with him to turn around and look at her and go, yeah, how did you get all these kids in here? That's like, hey, I didn't bring the kids in. Where did you get the kids? So she's creating the kids. Like, I think that's the thing, because she created her kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And we haven't talked about the fact that, hey, the twins have showed their powers now.
Yeah.
Wiccan and Speed have now shown their powers that they've had.
And that gets back to the Agatha thing, because I'm pretty sure in the comic books, she like basically takes their souls.
Yeah, she takes her souls. Yeah.
Right? And like Wanda has to make the choice between, her kids, or I can't remember what the other thing was. But in this time, I think they're setting it up. Again, I'm going kind of doubling down on a prediction I made before, where it's going to be kids or Vision.
Sure.
Can't have both. Be real.
Yep.
And that's going to be the final choice she has to deal with after regaining her sanity and realizing that she's been set up and like turning it all back on everybody. Is she's going to have to choose between her kids and Vision. So, and it might not be like a malicious decision. It might just be like maybe Darcy's like, there's not enough power to make both real.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do we pick? And she's got to make that decision. And I could see us not seeing what decision she goes with. Right? I could see that being how they end it.
We have Bettany playing Vision, who everybody really likes.
Yeah.
I think she would probably pick Vision, and then at the end result would be Vision would be heartbroken and just ends his relationship and disappears, like leaves.
Yeah.
And that would explain why she ends up losing her sanity even more. That breaks her because she made a choice, and then at the end of that choice, he didn't choose her. So then she starts losing her mind, and that's where...
Yeah, then she like gets carted away, and then Cumberbatch comes in to be like, I can help her. I can try.
She has the ability to break reality, and because her mind is fresh. Because
we need to either heal her or kill her.
Yeah, you really should go read, guys, Disassembled, because it leads into House of M, but basically she kills several Avengers because her sanity gets cracked because of the whole twin thing. But yeah, you're right. Agatha Harkness does take the souls, and you'll find out later in the first run of the Young Avengers series that Tommy and Billy, like, their souls get placed into other random teenage boys out in the world. And when they're built, like when the Young Avengers are built by Iron Lad, who, spoiler here, ends up just because you find out he's just a young Kang the Conqueror, just a really young Kang the Conqueror. They from the future, you find out that that he was able to find out that was their souls, was Wanda's kids' souls, and so their whole essence is restored eventually, and they're still the same kids, Billy and Tommy, but then they remember who they really are. Their souls, they reconnect their souls to their bodies. So yeah.
Comics, man.
It's a whole interesting story that was developed that took a long play that people forgot about after House of M, because House of M just
that was one of the biggest events in comic book history.
Yeah, and I know people were talking about, we're going to lead to House of M. If you don't have the X-Men established in like a long-term
reverse House of M is how you get them in the MCU.
So basically, she creates mutants. This isn't the first time I've heard someone say this. Like the end result of this whole thing is she says,
I don't think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
I think it's going to be something to do with Doctor Strange that happens in.
Okay.
Where he's going to do something that resets something to where mutants happened in our reality. And then Fantastic Four is going to be its own thing. Like, I think they're in a time bubble and they're going to come back from the 60s, and that's going to be like their story.
Oh shit. Okay.
Like they did exist, and like maybe they knew a young Hank Pym or whatever, and they've been stuck in this time bubble and like exploring the negative verse, which is their thing, right? Like they have that negative verse, like prison and stuff. Yeah. Like the negative zone, I think.
Negative zone, yeah.
Yeah, and like they're going to be exploring that for 40-some years with no time passing, and come back and holy shit, it's 2022. What the fuck? That's going to be their movie.
Well, I mean, because you have to with Fantastic Four, you have to balance the humor with it, because that's one of the key elements with it. It has to be, science fiction, space, and tech, but at the same time, a lot of humor with them. So a lot, kind of like it's styled within like Ant-Man, same kind of writing. So yeah, man, like shit, there's just so much that I really love how this show ties in the MCU together.
It's such like the threads they're weaving between all the various properties that they've done in the past and what they're doing in the future. You can just see them putting the bricks down. You don't know where the road's going, but you can see them laying that road. Go, that's gonna go somewhere fucking cool. Exactly. And I love the MCU for that. Love it.
Yep. I mean, and then of course the other day the trailer dropped for the final trailer dropped for Falcon and Winter Soldier. And it's like, sign me the fuck up, man.
Right? God, just looks fucking good.
Good. Like it looks like the Russo brothers had a lot of control, input on it because of what they did with like Winter Soldier, how it was like a political thriller.
Well, if any directors are going to have control over what happens in the MCU, give it to the fucking Russos, man.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that, but I hope that there is some, even if it's a tiny, like a little tie into this, to that. Maybe like you said, Barton's tied into both. Maybe, I don't know. You know?
I can see that.
Because of Hawkeye having his own show, he may make an appearance in Falcon and Winter Soldier at some point, just to tie in the stories. But it looks like that's their goal, is to tie in so many of these things together, which is great, man. So great. God. Like I really enjoyed. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this show as much as I am.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons Phase 1 worked so well, was the connective tissue of like Coulson. Like, even though it was at the beginning all different, it was Paramount and like Marvel Studios, like pre-Disney. Like it was Universal too, I think. Like all three.
Oh, Universal had the Hulk.
Yeah, they had Hulk, and Paramount had what did Paramount have? They had somebody.
They had everything. Basically, Paramount didn't own anyone. They just had
they had the distribution.
The distribution rights to the films.
Yeah, they had the theatrical distribution run. Yeah.
And I think the deal had expired in 2012, but then they finished off.
Yeah, and Marvel Studios got bought by Disney, and they took over all the existing contracts. Yeah.
So the Avengers 2012 film, Paramount knew that was going to be the it for them, but then they got to split a big chunk of that $1 billion.
Yeah, that was quite a bit. But speaking of movies,
it just comes together so well, man. It does, really does.
Like I'm so excited to see where they go. And I love that we're going to get an episode of an MCU property until probably the fall. Because then they're picking right up into, is it She-Hulk? No, it's Loki. So we're going to get, we're getting WandaVision, Winter Soldier, Loki.
And then don't forget Miss Marvel.
And then, but that's all got to be done before Mandalorian and Boba Fett. Boba Fett first and then Mandalorian. So we're going to get an MCU huge chunk.
Yep.
Then we're going to get a Star Wars huge chunk. Then we're going to get Black Widow and another chunk of TV MCU shows. And then that cycle, time me the fuck up, man. If they're this good.
We haven't been given a timeline for Hawkeye if it's going to be at the end of the year or at the beginning.
I would imagine that's a 2022 title, even though it's mostly in the can from what I see.
Yeah, it looks almost done.
But given what's in their pipeline, I would imagine they're going to push and lighten the load a little bit for one a week to kind of stretch that out, because clearly it's working. And fatigue only sets in, I saw this great quote, fatigue only sets in when there's actual crap that's being shoveled. When it's all good, fatigue doesn't happen. When it's good, fatigue doesn't happen.
Sure.
So that'll be interesting. But speaking of stuff that may or may not be good, I have one thing to discuss. Our last, well, 2 questions, but I'll save one for later when I actually make the purchase.
Okay.
This question, because I'm always up, especially with the news going on now within this last week, I'm up for a good cinematic fuck you to Joss Whedon right now.
Sure.
So what do you think of the trailer that we're going to, like the bits we've gotten thus far of the Snyder Cut? Particularly the Black Suit Superman stuff, which looked dope.
I really think out of a few aesthetics and maybe a little bit more dialogue, we're not going to look at having a huge difference. I think the only thing I could think of that people will jump on and really enjoy is, like you said, the Black Superman.
Yeah, like having Superman's arc make way more sense than it did in the Whedon cut.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how that affects the story.
Yeah, I think they really did. They did a shit job with Superman. It was basically just, I'm brought back to life.
Yeah,
I figure out who. Like, I don't know who I am, but I suddenly remember. And then
like that scene didn't work story wise. Looked cool. It didn't work story wise.
Like this guy basically went out there to kill all of them, and all of a sudden he's there to help them at the end. It just my money's on him. Them waking him up at night, because that's the other thing. They go from night to it's noon. Without any scenes in transition, and you're like, what? It's whiplash all over the place. Sure.
Flash is going to wake him up, and then he's just going to leave. And that whole sequence starts before they actually fight Steppenwolf for the first time.
Sure.
And then Steppenwolf kicks Superman's ass because he's not at full strength. And then he's like, I gotta go. And he goes back to Smallville, says hello to Lois, and then just goes up into the atmosphere. And we don't see him until the end of the movie. And then he comes back, black suit, wrecking shop. Because that line, I know this is a Whedon line, so I don't know. I doubt he'll keep it. But I like truth, and I'm also a big fan of justice. That's a great Superman line. That was awesome.
That was a nice little moment.
That was a good Superman moment, and that was the only good Superman moment Whedon had.
I know that, just reading, just since we've heard about the Snyder Cut being a possibility over the last 2 years, I know that there has been talk about the big thing that Snyder said was that Whedon basically restructured
a lot of the movie, a
lot of the scenes, and that's why it felt so disjointed, was because there's a much more fleshed out backstory because of the way Snyder had it lined up, and there's a lot.
Apparently, his opening sequence is a lot longer too.
Yeah. So I'm hoping it's a good movie, but honestly, I think when it's all said and done, man,
it's another one of those.
I'm with myself with this, man.
I'm not expecting it to be good, but part of me wonders, what if, after the director's cut of Batman vs Superman came out, we were like, oh, that's actually better,
Yeah.
Like, what happens if Justice League Snyder Cut is like, oh, that's actually interesting. Like, I would have liked to see where they pick up after this. What the fuck does DC do if everyone collectively says that? What do they do?
I mean, I don't know. At this point, we've basically said that the Batman isn't going to be.
Affleck's gone, and at this point, he's getting too old to keep up that body. That's huge. That's going to seriously fuck him up to keep that big that long.
Yeah, I think Ben Affleck did say it was torture for him to get.
Yeah, he was huge. He was absolutely just unhealthily big in Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a WWE superstar, but he's like 50. Like you can't keep that up for forever. What?
It's and he mentioned that it was a lot harder when he got to Justice League to stay in shape. But he did mention that, he was 45. And I'm 40. I'm going to be 43 pretty soon here. But he did mention that 45, 46 while he was doing Dawn of Justice, that it was really, really, really hard to stay in, to get to that big. Like, because when you get to the 40s for guys, we can train our asses off. The problem is it's harder for us to gain muscle mass.
Yeah.
Like you work as hard as you did when you were in your 20s and 30s to maintain your mass, but it's hard for you to gain mass. And he said that was the hardest thing. The frustrating part for him was he just couldn't gain muscle mass. Like that was really the hardest part for him.
Yeah, getting back to Justice League, he just didn't look the same.
Yeah. And you saw pictures with him after production of Justice League, and the dude just got he just deflated,
Right, and that's what happens. So
he got his dad bod back.
Yeah, it'll be real curious to see what they actually do with this movie, because it's going to be a fascinating way to examine.
If it's good, it's going to create a lot of problems.
Exactly. They're opening themselves up like, what if it is good? What the fuck happens to Flashpoint? Like, what do we do? Like, what if it's good? And everyone goes, more of this.
But then again,
what the fuck?
You've fired Ray Fisher.
Yeah, you fucked off Ray Fisher, and you've like completely fucked your pipeline because this movie bombed. But what if his cut's better and good enough to keep going with? Your pipeline's fucked. What do you do?
And then and then Wonder Woman 84 was just panned because it wasn't like a shit movie, but it just wasn't a good movie.
It was like an Aquaman that didn't have the positive, it was still fun.
Yeah, it was
Aquaman was a shitty movie, but it was still fun.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Wonder Woman 84 was the shitty movie that wasn't fun.
Yeah, and it wasn't supposed to be shitty because the first one was great. It was phenomenal.
It was a damn good movie.
We weren't expecting this one to be. We were like, okay, Patty Jenkins, there's no way. She's smart enough of a director to know that she has to stick the landing on 2, because Jon Favreau, that's where he fucked up with Iron Man 2. He didn't stick the landing. That's why ultimately he didn't direct 3, because he was so burnt out from having to shoulder the load after the first Iron Man that he just couldn't. And I think that was a big problem for Favreau. And obviously it was the biggest problem for Jenkins, because, and I'm sure we'll probably hear stories later on that the studio had to really dip in and make this a
I think this is a case of she had too much power.
You think so?
From what they said, she told him to fuck off with the whole 2 intros thing. And they fucked off. They shouldn't have. They should have been like, no, stick with the Amazon one. Fuck off with the mall bullshit. Nobody needs it.
Yep.
That's what it should have been.
Yeah, I agree.
Whatever.
I agree.
We got to start wrapping up here.
Sure, let's do this, man.
And my next question.
Sure.
If you could think about this for next time.
Okay.
Don't answer me now. And audience, let me know what your answer is, though, in the comments, if you listen to this far. What movie have you bought the most? Because I have a very interesting answer for you in 2 weeks.
Okay. I'll think about this one and I'll have to get back.
All right.
This one.
Well, that's it for the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm MrWartburg. That's Mr. Fusion. You can follow me at MrWartburg. He's at It's Mr. Fusion. Our links are across all our different stuff. You can find us there. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a review. Subscribe to the feed on whatever podcast feed you're watching and listening this on. Yeah, that's it. See you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Stay warm.
That's true. Oh my God, it's negative 15 here today. This sucks.
Oh God.
Okay, bye. Hey, you watching this? Like the podcast? Click on my TV to watch more. And subscribe and like and stuff.